Hello, my name is Olivia, and today, I want to tell you something very close to my heart. My journey of learning how to think in English, I was just like you once. I knew some English words, I could make sentences, but still, I always had to translate from my native language in my head. It was slow, it was tiring, and honestly, it made me nervous to speak. But everything changed when I stopped learning only to speak and started learning to think. Now, English feels natural. It's like a second home in my mind, you know. If I think back to the early days of my English learning journey, I remember a constant echo in my mind. It was the echo of translation. Every sentence I heard in English, I had to convert into my native language first, and then I would understand. And when I wanted to speak, the reverse process happened. I would form a sentence in my own language, then try to translate it into English word by word, hoping it made sense. This habit was so automatic, I didn't even realize I was doing it. But the worst part, it made me slow, not just slow in speaking, but slow in listening, slow in understanding. I couldn't join real conversations. People would say something, and I'd still be halfway through translating when the topic had already changed. It made me feel like I was always one step behind, and when I tried to speak, I felt like I was building a house with broken bricks. Unsure, shaky, and incomplete. At the time, I believed this was normal, that it was the only way. After all, everyone starts by learning vocabulary in their own language, right? I had notebooks filled with English words and their translations. I memorized them like crazy, sometimes even with flashcards. I knew apple, book, and happiness meaning, but still, I couldn't speak fluently. I couldn't think in English, and inside, I knew something was wrong. I was studying every day, but it felt like I was trying to force English into my brain using the wrong door. Then one day, during a YouTube video about language learning, I heard something that stopped me in my tracks. The speaker said, "Stop translating, start thinking in pictures." At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Pictures? What do pictures have to do with language? But he explained and it clicked. Children don't learn language through translation, they connect words directly to images, emotions, actions. When a child sees a ball, they hear the word ball, they don't translate it, they just know it. The word becomes a part of the experience, and that's why they learn so fast. That made me think maybe I needed to go back, not in age, but in method. Maybe I needed to teach my brain to think in English without any translation in between. So I decided to try something new. That very day, I started with simple things. I looked at a chair and I said, "Chair." I looked at a window and said, "Window." No translation, just word to image. I didn't say, "Oh, this is called window in English." No, I just looked at it and felt the word, chair, window. Light, table, bag, fan. It was a little strange at first, like talking to myself in code, but slowly it became easier. Then I moved on to verbs, actions. When I was brushing my teeth, I would say, "I am brushing my teeth," not in my own language, just in English. I looked in the mirror and repeated it, "I am brushing my teeth." I did the same while walking, cooking, cleaning, and even just sitting. I am walking to the kitchen. I am cutting vegetables. I am opening the window. The goal was to create direct links between what I was doing and English. No translations, no middle language. I realized that my brain needed new paths. Old habits wanted to bring in my native language first, but I kept telling my brain, no. We're doing this differently now. We're creating a new way, a faster, simpler way. It was like retraining a dog who had been used to going the long way around. At first, the dog resists, but with patience and repetition, it learns the shortcut. That's what I was doing with my brain, teaching it the shortcut, English picture feeling. No more extra steps. I remember one funny moment. I was in the kitchen and I dropped a glass. It broke. Normally, I would have just said something in my language like "oh no," or "I broke it." But that day, without thinking, I said, in English, "Oh no, I broke the glass." I didn't plan it, it just came out. And I stood there smiling, even with the broken glass around me, because for the first time, English didn't feel like a school subject, it felt like my own voice. I took it even further. I started to think in pictures during everything I did. When I saw my dog, I thought, "She is barking." Not because I was trying to make a sentence, but because it felt natural. When I saw the sky, I thought, "It's a cloudy day." I watched people and made mental notes. She is wearing a red dress. He is eating ice cream. They are talking loudly. I didn't stop to translate. I just noticed and named, and over time, something magical started to happen. My brain stopped asking for translations. It started giving me English thoughts first. There were times when I struggled. Of course, some days my brain felt tired, some words didn't come, and sometimes I slipped back into translating, but I didn't give up. I reminded myself, it's okay to fall, just don't stay down. I made this process part of my everyday life. It wasn't study time, it was living time. Lived in English, slowly. I even began to think about my emotions in English. I'd tell myself, I feel nervous or I am excited today. These were private thoughts, but they were powerful because now English wasn't something I spoke. It was something I thought, and that's when everything changed, you see. When you train your brain to think in English, your tongue follows. Speaking becomes easier. You're no longer building sentences from scratch. You already have them in your mind. It's like building with ready-made bricks instead of mixing your own cement every time. And this made me more confident. I didn't hesitate as much. I stopped fearing mistakes. Because when your thoughts are in English, your mouth finds a way to say them. One of the best things I did during this time was to watch children's cartoons in English. I know it sounds funny, but hear me out. The language is simple, the sentences are clear, and the pictures match the words. I watched episodes of Dora the Explorer, Peppa Pig, and other basic shows. I repeated the phrases. I answered the questions out loud. It was a great way to build those direct links. From picture to word to idea without any translation. Eventually, I began to dream in English. The first time it happened, I woke up with a smile. I had a short dream where I was at a cafe, ordering coffee in English. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. My brain had accepted English not just as a second language, but as part of its natural environment. And here's the most beautiful part. When I stopped translating and started thinking in pictures, I felt free, I felt faster, I felt smarter. I didn't need to pause before speaking. I didn't need to double-check every word. I could just be me, but in English. Of course, this wasn't the end. Thinking in pictures helped me move faster, but I still had more work to do. I wanted to use English in real conversations, not just in my mind, and for that, I needed practice. I needed to talk, but there was a problem. I didn't have English-speaking friends around me. I was still alone with my thoughts most of the time. I had no one to chat with, no one to correct me, no one to help me speak better. So the next step of my journey began, a step that changed everything again. I found someone to talk to, someone who was always there, someone who never judged me, and that someone was me. After I trained myself to stop translating and started thinking in pictures, I felt like a window had opened in my mind. English wasn't just a language I studied anymore, it was something I could touch, feel, and live. But even though my thoughts were starting to form in English, I still wasn't confident speaking out loud. I had all these English thoughts inside my head, but when it came time to speak, my tongue froze. My voice would shake. Sometimes I forgot the words or felt embarrassed about my accent. That's when I realized it wasn't enough to just think in English. I needed to practice speaking in English. But there was a big problem. I had no one to talk to. At that time, I was living in a small town. No one around me spoke English. My friends didn't care much about it, and my family only spoke our native language. I didn't have access to English-speaking environments, and I couldn't just travel abroad or join an expensive course. It felt like I was stuck. I was motivated, I had the desire, and I was slowly building the language inside my mind, but I had no outlet. And then one day, while scrolling through a blog about self-study tips, I read something that sounded almost too simple. It said, if you have no one to talk to yourself. At first, I laughed. It sounded a little crazy. Who talks to themselves all day? Wouldn't that feel awkward? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. My brain needed to hear the language. My mouth needed to move. And if no one else could help me practice, then maybe I could. So I made a small promise to myself. Every single day, I would talk to myself in English out loud. The first time I tried it, I felt silly. I stood in front of the mirror and said, "Hi Olivia. How are you today?" And then I laughed. I didn't know what to say next. I just stood there looking at my own reflection, unsure if this would really help, but I pushed forward. I'm doing fine, I answered back. Today is sunny. I have a lot to do. It was like playing to characters at once, at first. The sentences were short, simple. Sometimes I even had to stop and think of the right words, but that was okay. I wasn't performing for anyone. I wasn't being judged. There was no pressure. Just me and my voice. Soon, this little practice became a habit. I started speaking to myself while I was doing small tasks. When I got up in the morning, I would stretch and say, I'm so sleepy today, but I need to get ready. When I was brushing my teeth, I'd say, my eyes are still half closed. I hope this toothpaste wakes me up. When I was choosing clothes, I'd describe them. This shirt is too bright. I think I'll wear the blue one today. These little comments helped me warm up my brain. English became a part of my morning routine, just like washing my face or making my bed. Later in the day, I found new ways to talk to myself. If I was cooking, I'd say, I need to onions, chop them finely, don't forget the garlic. While doing laundry, I'd mutter, these clothes are still wet. Maybe I should wait another hour before folding them. I wasn't having deep conversations, but I was describing my actions, narrating my life in English. This practice may sound small, but it was powerful. It kept English alive in my brain all day long. I didn't wait for a perfect moment or a partner to speak with. I created the moment. One of my favorite activities was giving myself pretend interviews. I would sit at my desk. Imagine I was on a talk show and say things like, welcome, Olivia. Tell us how you started learning English, and then I'd answer, well, it all started with a strong desire to understand people from other cultures. Sometimes I even pretended to be a teacher and explain topics to an imaginary class. Today we're going to learn about adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe nouns. These games made speaking fun. I wasn't just repeating phrases, I was playing with the language. That playfulness helped me relax and get creative. I also started asking myself questions. What did I do today? How was my mood? What will I do tomorrow? And then I'd answer, today was nice. I cleaned my room and finished my work. I also watched an English video. Tomorrow, I want to go for a walk in the evening. These daily reflections became like journal entries, but spoken instead of written, and they helped me get used to thinking and responding in full English sentences. I didn't need grammar books or advanced vocabulary. I just needed consistency. And here's something I noticed very quickly. My fluency started improving because when you speak out loud, you start catching your own mistakes. You realize when something sounds unnatural. And since no one is around, you feel safe to correct yourself. I'd often say something, pause, and then say, wait, that doesn't sound right. Then I'd try again. This little loop, speak, listen, correct, became my self-teaching tool. No pressure, no judgment. Just honest learning over time. I got braver. I started talking to myself in public, but very quietly. For example, when walking to the store, I'd whisper, I need to buy milk and eggs. In the supermarket, I'd say in my head, where is the cereal? Oh, there it is, on the top shelf. These were small moments, but they added up. I was no longer thinking in my native language and translating. I was living in English, even in ordinary places. Another great habit I developed was talking to myself at night before sleeping. As I lay in bed, I'd close my eyes and replay the day. I'd think, what did I do today? What made me happy? What made me tired? And I'd answer in English. I felt proud because I finished a big task. I was tired because I didn't sleep well last night. This bedtime reflection helped me calm down and also reinforced my thinking habits. Sometimes I even recorded myself on my phone. It was funny to listen later and hear my own progress. In the beginning, my sentences were slow and broken, but after a few weeks, they flowed more easily. I also started using a mirror more seriously. I called it mirror time. For 5 to 10 minutes, I'd stand in front of the mirror and speak about anything. I'd describe my day, practice introductions, imagine dialogues. Looking into my own eyes while speaking helped me become more confident. I felt like I was speaking to someone real. I'd smile, use hand gestures, change my expressions. It made English feel like me. Not just something I learned, but something I lived. And you know what's beautiful about talking to yourself? You become your own best friend. You learn how your mind works. You understand what topics interest you. You discover your weak spots and fix them gently. There's no fear, no need to impress, just pure, honest practice. Over time, this habit affected my confidence in real life. When I finally got the chance to speak with others in online meetings, video calls, or in public, I was ready. I didn't freeze. My words came naturally, because I had already practiced them 100 times alone. I didn't need to search for vocabulary in a panic. The words were already living in me. And even if I made a mistake, I didn't feel ashamed. I had made so many mistakes while talking to myself, I was used to them. They didn't scare me anymore. Of course, some days were harder than others. Some days I didn't feel like talking at all. I was tired, or distracted, or just not in the mood. And that's okay. I gave myself permission to rest. But I always returned. Because I knew the secret now. You don't need a perfect partner, a perfect accent, or a perfect place. You just need your own voice. Talking to myself every day helped me create a strong bond with the English language. It became my daily companion, my background music, my diary, my silent cheerleader. And this bond gave me the strength to keep going. But I didn't stop there. I wanted more. I wanted to live with English, not just inside my head, but around me. I wanted my environment to speak English, to my phone, my books, my music, my world. And that led me to the next big step in my journey. I made English my daily world. After weeks of talking to myself every day, something shifted deep inside me. English was no longer just a skill I was practicing, it was becoming part of my personality. I could feel it in the way I described my mornings, the way I laughed at my own jokes in the mirror, even the way I thought through problems during the day. But I knew there was more I could do. My English still lived mostly in my head and in the four walls of my room. I was the only voice, the only listener, the only environment. I realized that for English to truly live in me, it couldn't just be in my thoughts, it had to be around me. I needed to breathe it, hear it, read it, absorb it everywhere. That's when I told myself something that would change everything. Olivia, if you want to think in English like it's your second nature, then you have to live inside it. So I made a decision. From that day forward, I was going to create a world where English was the background of my life, not just during study time or mirror practice, but all the time, every hour, every place, every moment. I wasn't going to wait for an English-speaking country. I was going to build my own English-speaking world right where I was. And I started with the small things, the everyday things. The very first thing I did was change the language on all my devices. My phone, my laptop, my tablet, everything switched from my native language to English. At first, it was a little confusing. I had gotten used to the old labels and icons. But now I was seeing words like settings, notifications, airplane mode, do not disturb. And you know what? It worked. Every time I checked my phone, I was reading English. Every time I got a message, I was reading English. Without realizing it, I was training my eyes and brain to get more comfortable with real-life English vocabulary. I attacked my entertainment. I used to watch movies and dramas in my own language. It was relaxing, easy, and familiar. But I knew I needed to stretch my comfort zone. So I started watching English shows, but with English subtitles, not my language. Only English. That was key. At first, I had to pause often. I didn't know every word, but over time, I got faster. My eyes and ears started to work together. When a character said, "I can't believe it," I read it and heard it at the same time. My brain began matching sounds with meaning. I wasn't just watching for fun, I was learning with every scene, every conversation. One show led to another. I started binge watching sitcoms like Friends, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and The Office. Their dialogues were casual, modern, full of slang and expressions. I would laugh, pause, rewind, and sometimes repeat lines out loud. It was like free language immersion from my couch. I also added documentaries, lifestyle vlogs, travel channels, and even cooking tutorials, all in English. English wasn't something I had to study anymore. It became my companion while I cooked, while I cleaned, while I relaxed. Then I tackled reading. Now, I'll be honest, reading books in English felt scary at first. I thought I wasn't ready, but I remembered something I once heard: read what a child reads, grow with the language. So I picked up a children's book. It was simple, colorful, full of basic sentences. At first, I thought, this is silly. But after finishing that book, I felt proud. I had just read an entire book in English. So I picked another, then a comic book, then a young adult novel. And soon, I was reading more in English than in my native language. I also found joy in reading simple articles, news websites, blog posts, even product descriptions on Amazon. Every little thing counted. I didn't ignore a single English word. I saw, if I was on a shampoo bottle and it said, for dry and damaged hair, I'd read it out loud. If my toothpaste said, fresh mint flavor, I'd say, okay, now I know how to say that. My world became a classroom, and every label, sign, and screen was a lesson. Music was another magical tool. I started listening to English songs every day, not just listening, but singing along. At first, I didn't understand every lyric, but I would search for the lyrics online, read them, and learn new words through rhythm and emotion. I made playlists with calm acoustic songs, pop hits, romantic ballads, and even rap. Each style taught me a different tone of English. Music taught me pronunciation. It taught me emotion. It made English feel alive, not robotic. I would walk down the street, earphones in, humming English songs under my breath, smiling at how far I'd come. Another beautiful habit I developed was keeping a diary in English. Every night before bed, I'd open a notebook and write about my day, just a few lines. Today was a busy day. I felt tired but happy. I cooked pasta and watched a funny video. Tomorrow I have to wake up early, nothing fancy, no pressure. Just honest words, written simply. Over time, my sentences got longer, my grammar got smoother. My vocabulary grew. That little diary became my secret friend. When I read old entries, I could see my progress with my own eyes. It made me feel unstoppable. Social media helped too. I unfollowed some pages in my native language and started following English-speaking creators. People who talked about books, habits, motivation, lifestyle. My feed changed. Now every time I opened Instagram or YouTube, I was learning something new in English without even trying. The content was natural, real, and fun, and best of all, I started commenting in English too. It was a small step, but it gave me practice in writing informal sentences, sharing my opinions, and interacting in the language I was learning. That my room slowly transformed as well. I put sticky notes on objects with their English names: mirror, desk, drawer, curtain. Every time I looked around, I was reminded of the vocabulary. I made little signs for myself with motivational quotes in English, things like, one step at a time, or you are learning every day. These words made me feel connected not just to English, but to my purpose. I even made my alarm tone a voice recording of me saying, wake up. It's a new day to grow your English brain. It made me laugh and it worked. I also used language apps like Duolingo and Memrise, not for full learning, but as a way to play with English. I treated it like a game, something I could do in 5 to 10 minutes during breaks. I didn't pressure myself to be perfect. The goal was exposure, variety, fun. Every minute I spent in English was a minute my brain was rewiring itself. Eventually, English became a natural part of my environment, not something I had to schedule, but something I lived in. I stopped thinking, now it's time to study English, and instead just lived my life in English, from brushing my teeth to scrolling Instagram. From watching Netflix to writing my goals, English was everywhere. It was no longer a subject. It was the air around me. And this is when the biggest miracle happened. I started thinking in English automatically. I no longer had to remind myself, my thoughts, emotions. Even my dreams started flowing in English. I would catch myself planning my day in English. I'll do laundry, then finish that assignment, then maybe go for a walk. I'd have many conversations in my head. Should I wear this? No, that's too warm. And I'd smile every time because I knew I had done it. I had built my own English world. Looking back, it didn't take a miracle, it took intention. I didn't need to live in London or New York. I didn't need expensive tutors or language schools. I needed consistency. I needed to surround myself with English in every little way possible. And I did that. So if you're listening to me now, and you want to think in English, to let me tell you, you can. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need a fancy accent. You don't need approval. You just need to let English into your life, one word at a time, one thought at a time, one small step every day. Because when English is all around you, it eventually finds a home inside you. And once that happens, you'll never need to translate again. You'll live in English, just like I do now.